My name is Mia Thomas with Royal 504 Traveler, and today I will show you how I leverage landing pages and forms to market to public groups. I typically rotate between a waitlist form and a multi-marketing landing page. So the waitlist form is literally piquing interest and using that information to help you determine how you want to move forward. Oftentimes, we have no idea the details of a trip, but we have an idea. So I want to show you a real example of something that I did. So I reside in Memphis, and I wanted to do a Memphis 24-hour getaway. And if you look on the screen, you can see the details that I included are not very detailed at all. It is literally, if you are interested, fill out the form. The idea is to make the most out of a day. We're going to depart from Memphis on a Saturday and we're going to return on a Sunday. The destination is completely unknown. So I was going to find a very simple, affordable flight for us to take a 24-hour getaway. Well, it was an idea in my head, but I didn't want to do a whole lot of work. So I created a form, and the form created interest. So I'm going to go to the actual form so you can see how simple the form was when I submitted it. So this one has been sold out. So this part was added later because I didn't want to limit the amount of people, even though you can. I wanted them to know that it was sold out. But traveler's name, email, phone number, the city that they reside in, and the state. This part was added later once I was able to establish the dates. This I found to be very important, the city and the state, because when I looked at all of the names, so when I went to the three dots and exported the spreadsheet, which I won't pull up because it has everyone's personal information, but if you do that, it will take all of this data and make it visible. I learned that 90% of the people that filled this form out, and it was about 60 people, did not reside in Memphis. So imagine me creating a Memphis trip and the people coming are not Memphis. So that changed my whole process on what I was going to do. So instead of booking a flight, what I determined is when I looked at all the cities and states that people were in, what location was drivable, and it was Nashville. So that is how I came up with the Nashville actual trip. When everyone submitted their information and said that they were interested, I then created an itinerary. So this was the itinerary. I then picked the date. And I like to use, and I'll do the preview button just so you can kind of get a better visual from the client's perspective on what it looks like, because we know how to use this. This makes it easy for them to spot the information in the main points. So this lets them know everything that's included. Everybody needs to be 21 years or older. It gave a brief itinerary on what we're going to do on that Saturday and that Sunday, what the cost is, the range, so they can determine really quickly if this is something they want to pursue. The payment information, how to pay, just a lot of information. And of course, visuals always help to give people an idea of what the energy is going to be for the trip. So that's what this was. As you can see, even some of the details were still not there. We were not sure where the brunch would be because we did not know how many people would actually pay for it. So this was to be determined, but to let them know this is the time we plan on meeting, etc. I like to use the chart feature to kind of outline things visually. This also was a feature this was before the decisions option, right? So this is how I would outline different options. So this let people know if you're sharing 2, 3, 4 people per room, how you would move forward with that. I personally include a map for my clients to give them some type of proximity on where they're sleeping to the activities that we have. It's called My Google. You can Google that on YouTube, but I like to include that so they can get an idea of where everything is going to be located. And I literally copy this information from like Expedia.com to get the proximity of different things that are there. I also embed the TripAdvisor reviews because if they're looking at a property, I do want them to know what they can expect with it. Links to the hotel, which you embed into your actual trip. And for a visual from our angle, that's literally this, right? Embedding that information in here. So going into your actual edit button and using this little link to insert that link. So I did that. I put a video. I like to use the videos when I can instead of just photos, and just continued with everything, right? So this allowed me to price out everything. A lot of the activities were optional. so they can choose which one. I don't typically do trips where I force everyone to do the same thing. I allow people to branch out. So if someone wants to do a perfume and candle session, they can do that. That's the price. If someone else wants to do a glow in the dark splatter type of experience, they can do that as well. So I personalize it so that everybody kind of can do what they want to do. This one was a mocktails and cocktails option where they actually show you how to make the drinks, so it's light bites, axe throwing, etc. And I also attached my Viator link. This is something that you have access to with Travefy. So they allow you to actually enter the purchasing link right then and there. So if they click on it, it goes straight to your Viator. So I used all of that to ensure that I can maximize on commission as much as I possibly can. So that is my forms process. So my forms process is strictly an interest with who's interested in this. If you are, put your name on the waiting list, you will be first to get the details. Creating a little excitement, exclusivity on you being the first ones to get it, to lock in those prices if you choose to, always helps. So that is one way that I typically use when I'm marketing to a public group. With personal groups, it's a little bit easier because everybody knows one another. You're typically dealing with the main person. But when it's with the public, you need a massive way to reach everyone and answer as many questions as you can because you're only one person and many of us are solo, right? So that's the first way. The second way is how to take one experience and market it to multiple clients. So a good example for that, and this can be any trip, but what typically works best for this is like a cruise. So I have a particular cruise that I was able to lock in cabins for before with Virgin Voyages before they got rid of the bar tab. So how do you market without marketing saying anybody want to go on a cruise? No, I personalized it, right? So I'm going to go and I'm actually going to pull up my official website page. And from here, I have a luxury in Turks Virgin Voyages cruise. And in here, it gives information, adults only, all the things that are included, but it also lets them pick their own mood and vibe that they're interested in. So set sail with your soulmate. So this is for couples. Sense and the Sea. This is a girls trip. We'll do a little perfume exchange, the cutesy things. And then cruising with Cancer season. So these are the cancers of the world because this trip is in June and July. And then someone that just wants to go on a trip, they're not really heavy on the theme, they can just do that. So when someone goes to my page and they click on pick their vibe, it takes them to a landing page. This landing page gives more information. A lot of times the struggle is we are trying to fit everything on one page and people just don't read it. So you have to break it up in smaller bites for them to be receptive of the information and so that it applies to the person that it needs to apply to. So if you're interested in a cruise, a luxury cruise, this is something that you would click on. So this gives them information about me and now it breaks up. And I changed the color as well so they can visually know that they're in a different space. But it breaks up the 4 things I literally just said. But now on this page, I elaborate a little bit more, right? So they can have a better idea of what it is. So let's just say someone wanted to go on Sense in the Sea. I would click on I am in and I always name, and just to go back, I like to name the buttons a little differently for each thing. I want romance, it's my season, whatever matters. And I like to match the page with it. So if I click on this is like pink girly, right? So from June 27th to the 2nd, I have a video for Virgin Voyages. It gives them the outline, the links, how long it's been sailing so they know it's a pretty new ship, what's included, and I outline this. Now keep in mind, on a laptop, it looks unaligned, but on the mobile device, it's stackable. So they don't see the spaces and gaps that's on here. But for each concept that I have, the perks change because I'm adding in different things for each type of person. Like for the couples, it's the romance that's built into it. So it's different things. So I include all of this. I like to embed the view menu. So I'm going to go to our view just so you can have a better concept of what that looks like. This is for Sense in the Sea. So this is the information. This is the same link here. So when you click on that, it's going to take them to the actual menu for the different details of the food. But in here, it's on the all food part. If I hit the enter button, I'm including it here. Same concept of inserting the link. So it takes them straight to the company. If something changes, I want them to have the most updated information. And I continue the same process with explaining different things, entertainment, anything that's special about that particular group so they can know everything that's included. And here is where I insert another form. Because I have this inventory reserved, I want to make sure that I book it straight into my circle. So I want them to fill out a form for me. So if I go to this section, I can edit and you'll see that my form is right here for them to actually fill out their information. And it's a standard form, whatever that you personally need. But I also give flexibility for people who want to book it on their own. So for these, I provided my actual affiliated link so they can book on their own and not use the form if they choose to. I also included the 3D. So the cabins do show you like 3D of what it actually looks like. So I actually include that into it so they can have everything they need. Remember, this is a public group. You're going to get pure strangers. So you want them to have access to whatever information they possibly can to minimize them reaching out to you if it's not needed, or to minimize them not booking because they don't have enough information to make a decision. And then keep going, right? It's just different things that the group gets. I have the carousel, which shows the configurations of anyone who is interested in booking 3 or more in the same cabin. So they can see how that sleep would actually look. So these are the things I'm just incorporating in my landing page. Of course, your cancellation policy, other information, travel requirements, and I also integrate my Calendly, which can be added into your landing page. So if for some reason this information was not sufficient for them, they would still be able to meet with me. And then the other thing that I do on each page is there is a FAQ section, which is another landing page. So when they click on the FAQ, it sends them to another page that answers frequently asked questions about a multitude of things. Some things are repetitive, but it's just like a go-to point. Flex pay, matching loyalty points. So again, I leverage my landing pages to minimize the information and centralize it. So if you have FAQs, I wouldn't want to put all of this on each page for each theme because that's overkill. They may not need that. But for someone who has more questions and wants to know different things, this is another place for just the most popular questions, if that makes sense. And the last thing that I would say is first of all, each page has its own color, and it's also important to personalize it with the slug. So when people are sharing something with you or responding, just by the color, that when you click on it, you'll know what it's really for so that you're not confused or speaking about something that doesn't apply, but making sure that the unique slug matches the theme so that it makes sense to the client. And of course, leaving my logo on each one. This is the couples. As you can see, they're more of a red. This is the one for the cancers. That's more of a blue, right? So I have each one with a different color, but I don't want you to get overwhelmed with, okay, how did you know to do that? I used the marketplace. I cheated. Yes, I cheated. So I used someone else's guide to help personalize it the way that I wanted it personalized. Now, let me see if I can remember what I searched. Maybe cruise, landing page, Virgin Voyages. Right here. This is the one that I selected. So when I click on this, this allows you to preview that person's page. So when you click on preview, of course, you can look at mobile or desktop view. Give it a second to load. So this is what I started with. I took someone else's shell, their template, and I personalized it to what I wanted for my team. So of course, I replaced this information. I changed even the actual theme of the page. But this is not what my first page looks like, right? So my first page looks like this. So I use the formatting of the simplicity of it, but I added things personally for me. I didn't use this for current promotions. I didn't use this feature or this picture, but the always included section, I just renamed it, right? And I personalized some of the things and changed out some of the photos. Some of it I kept the same. But take something that's already there. So search for what you're looking for If it's a certain destination, see what someone else has and let that be your starting point because the shell will be there. But overall, everyone, this is what I typically use to determine if I am going to create a landing page or if I'm going to do a form setup to help me identify. And one last one, this one for Carnival, I actually did a wait list. I did a wait list with a form, had no details. I gave them a wide range. And from that interest, I'm 70% sold out. So, depending on how technical the planning is, to me, that makes me decide whether or not I'm going to use the form and base my work off of that. But this is also a page, just so you know. This is Royally Lit in St. Thomas, where I have the carousel, pictures, and it is the carnival in St. Thomas. So people that do not have a passport, this is a great way to have a Caribbean experience without having a passport. Well, I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough on how I leverage landing pages and forms to market to public groups. But thank you so much for watching. And if you did not know, this is how I Travefy.